Hi, my name's Janie. I'd like to talk to you about an experience I had back in October 2022, which at the moment, at the time of recording this, it's not that long ago. Um, I had been having nosebleeds, I'd been having them quite regularly, but they weren't that heavy, so I didn't really think much of them. Just put it down to one of those things. And then one day I woke up and my nose started to bleed and it became quite heavy. And I thought, I'll see what happens, I'll just see if the bleeding stops. And it didn't. It was becoming a hemorrhage, and I got quite scared. So I thought, oh God, I'll have to phone for an ambulance. And I'm not one of these people who particularly, well, I'm like everybody else. I don't particularly like hospitals or medical procedures or ambulances. So it was quite bad. I thought, well, I'm going to have to. So I rang for an ambulance. I didn't have to wait too long. The ambulance people came in and they put this like bandage over my nose. And within seconds, the bandage was like covered in blood. So they put another one on and another one. And it was just soaking through the bandage. So the ambulance people said, well, you're going to have to go to hospital. And I was really scared at this point. The ambulance rushed me to hospital. I was taken straight into resource. And at that point, I was like beginning to feel really queasy, really sort of faint and dizzy and scared because I was in the hospital. They put this contraption up my nose. It was really painful to try and stem the bleeding. I think it was given blood. And then I began to sort of feel myself drifting off, almost like losing consciousness. Um, anyway, at some point, I heard the doctor say, "Oh God, she's going into shock." So I remember them rushing me into this other room on the trolley, and I was aware of like the whiteness in the room. The room was like white, a hospital room. It was white, but it was like it became more and more white. So I couldn't see any defining objects in the room. It was just, it became engulfed in this whiteness. And there was no feeling of like losing consciousness or drifting away. I just became aware that the room was white. No sense of a dark tunnel or anything like that. And then gradually the whiteness in the room seemed to dissipate. It would like just gradually faded, and I became aware of being in a vast hall. It was massive. It was, you couldn't see the ends of the hall. It was just so big. And I wasn't scared, but I was like, confused. What am I doing here, sort of thing. It was like 1 minute I was in the hospital, and the next I was in this strange place, but it seemed familiar. And I remember feeling like an overwhelming sense of almost like coming home, of love. It was like familiar but strange at the same time. Didn't see any relatives coming towards me or anything like that. You hear these stories about relatives coming, and there was nothing like that. But then I was aware of something landing on my shoulder, and it was a budgie that I'd had as a child at the age of 6, Billy the Budgie. And he used to do that. He used to do that to me, and he was doing that. He felt solid, he felt real. And I was like, oh God, there's Billy the Budgie. And I was aware of like all the dogs I'd ever owned as a child and an adult, all the dogs I'd ever known coming towards me. There was Brownie, there was this dog, that dog, Stewie and Studley, 2 dogs I'd had recently passed over, and they were there as well. And it was like, oh God, it was at this point I kind of knew where I was. I felt like I'd come home. I remember thinking, oh God, this is heaven, this is doggy heaven, because I'm a big dog lover. I was aware of my 2 guides being with me, not being afraid, but kind of had like this delight in where I was. And I remember saying, oh God, I'm in here, I want my life review, and they were kind of like amused at that, because and they sort of said, no, you don't. You'll know it when you get in. You're not ready for that. No, you're not. No. And I remember seeing all these figures, people, spirits, what have you, going about the business, and they all seemed to be familiar, and yet I didn't know them. And the whole place was just emanating love. Well, the dogs who came up to me, it was like they could communicate with me. Of course, dogs can't talk, but it was like I understood everything that they were saying. They were communicating to me somehow, and I was communicating back to them, and they were just surrounded in love. And they seemed to be so much wiser than I was, when we look at animals, we kind of have this superior attitude towards them, as if to say, like, we're humans, we're top of the food chain, we're intelligent. But it's not true. They were equal to me. I felt a great sense of them being equal to me, if not wiser, because they had no guiles about them. They had no malice. They had no negativity. They were just pure love. This place, it's just, words fail me. I'm always saying this when I talk about it. Not many people know. I've only told a couple of people, but when I talk about it, it's like, it's beyond words, it's beyond description. There were these colours, like, I've put a lot of colour in my life. I paint, I'm an artist, and there were colours that I couldn't describe, colours that I've never seen before, and yet I recognised them. It was just everywhere was surrounded in colour and whiteness as well at the same time. I didn't want to go back. I just really did not want to go back. I was happy there. There's so much more that I'm going to cover on this in another video, but I haven't got time for this one. I'm just going over the very basics of what happened. But it was just like, there was, love is the only way you can describe it. I was given my reason for being on the earth a few months later, but at the time I actually knew. I didn't know it until it was confirmed a few weeks later. I'd forgotten it, but at the time I knew. But there's so much more about this experience that I remembered at the time, but it's all forgotten about now. It's just gone. I remember at some point thinking about my family and friends on the earth, and I don't know if it was that brought me back, but I wasn't aware of leaving the place. But the next thing I know, was like floating around in the hospital. I remember seeing this guy in a bed, and he was dying, and he seemed to be afraid, and it was sort of saying to him, well, no, don't be scared, there's nothing to be afraid of, just go there, it's lovely, And I think he died. The next thing I know, I was back in the bed, in the resus room or wherever it was. I remember saying to the nurse, I don't want to be here, I want to be back where I was. I think she just sort of thought, oh, you're delirious, I went back to the ward, and I hadn't really processed any of it at this time. I think I thought, oh, it was a bit delirious, it was a bit like, I don't know if they gave me any drugs or what have you, or if it was the blood I'd lost, but I thought it was delirious, it was just a vivid dream. It was only in the days and weeks afterwards that it kind of occurred to me I'd had an NDE. I remember how real the experience was. I remember how vivid it was. It was more real than so-called reality, you know, this planet that we live on, and the energy seemed to be so much denser here. I just wanted to go back there, but in the weeks that followed, there was a change in me. There was a definite shift of consciousness and awareness. I'd always been, or thought I was, I'd always been a spiritually inclined person. I wouldn't say spiritual, but I thought I was. I was into New Age philosophies and Reiki and meditation and things like that. But afterwards, it was like that became my life. The first thing I'd do when I woke up in the morning would be to meditate and to connect with the divine, to connect with source. And I gradually became aware of a sense of, a deep sense of compassion for other people, compassion for myself, compassion for the planet that we live on. I just felt a sense of connectedness with everything. I'd look at people and I'd see the spark of the divine in them, as if there was no separation between them and the divine, and between them and me, because we are all connected. We're all part of the same source. And that was something that I knew up here now, and I knew here. I could, once again, I can't explain the words, but it was a different sense of knowing to the sense that I'd had previously. And it's an ongoing process. But my guides have revealed to me that I'd had a blockage in my pineal gland, and it had to be cleared. It was later discovered that the cause of the nosebleeds was I had a growth here, and it was wasn't doing me any good. It was benign, but it was growing, and it could have done a lot of damage. So I had an operation to have it removed, and I felt even better after that. But it was like a literal physical purging, a physical unblocking of my third eye, my pineal gland. It's continuing to open every day. Every day I learn more things and I make more discoveries, and my life has just been so full of almost miraculous events and synchronicities and psychic experiences, and it's been really good. I reconnected with a very dear friend of mine who I'd lost touch with for about 20 odd years. And then we connected on Facebook, but all we do would be like each other's comments and what have you, and just sort of say a quick hello, but that was as far as it went. But after this experience, we reconnected as friends, and we very quickly became really close friends. It's a spiritual friendship. He's about the only Johnny is about the only person on this planet who I can talk to in any kind of depth about spiritual things, because he gets it. And as I say, I'm growing day by day. I'm learning day by day, and it's an ongoing journey. But in my next couple of videos, I'll cover in more depth what happened to me when I had this experience, and the things that have happened to me since, which have been synchronistic and meaningful and quite beautiful. It's a beautiful ongoing journey. I'm still learning. I've still got loads to learn. I still make mistakes. I still get things wrong. I still, I'm still me, but I've got a deeper insight into who I am and what my motivations are. As I say, it's an ongoing healing journey. It's very cathartic. It's very beautiful, and I'd like to share what I can with you. So anyway, bye for now.